Gottlieb, former FDA commissioner. He sits on the boards of Pfizer and Illumina and is a CNBC contributor. Dr. Gottlieb, thanks for being with us.
Thanks a lot.
So 100 doses of vaccinations administered now. Are you surprised by that? Did you think it would take a little bit longer, or does it make sense given the trajectory we've seen in terms of the ramp of distribution?
Yeah, it fits with what I was expecting and what we had talked about on this network. I think by the end of this month, we'll be close to 100 million Americans vaccinated. So at least one dose in 100 million Americans. We might not quite get there, but we'll get pretty close to it. Right now, we're putting about 20 million vaccines into the market each week. If you're figuring about 80% of those are actually getting into arms, and there's sort of a 60-40 split on first doses and second doses, it means we're getting about 10 million new first doses in arms every week, just about, maybe a little bit less than that. And so you extend that out over the course of this month, and by the time you get to the end of the month, assuming a little bit of a step up in the pace of vaccination, you get to close to 100 million Americans that will have at least one shot. So we're doing good. We're doing really well here. We're picking up the pace, and there's going to be more supply coming online in April and May.
So then a May 1st deadline to at least start to open up vaccinations to all Americans. Does that sound feasible to you? Does it sound conservative?
Well, the president said by May 1st, he wants everyone to have opened up vaccination to anyone in the state who's over the age of 16. So it's going to be well before that. You know, we've talked about it being in April, really, probably by the end of March, early April. I think by early April in most states, you're going to see states starting to open up eligibility to anyone, because I think supply is going to outpace demand at some point towards the end of March into April. So states will have to quickly expand eligibility if they want the supply of the vaccine to keep up with the demand in their states.
Dr. Gottlieb, does the U.S. have to be concerned about some of the data and semi-lockdowns in Europe or not, because the big difference is the percentage of population vaccinated?
I think we need to be concerned about it. I think we're in a different situation here in the United States. We're a couple of months ahead of Europe in terms of population-wide immunity with respect to some of the countries, but certainly with respect to the pace of vaccination. So I think that there is more population-level immunity in the population here in the United States. So we don't face the same risk. But we do face a risk that as we relax our measures, as people stop wearing masks, start engaging in more activity, you're going to see a resurgence in infection. We're already seeing it. That doesn't mean that we're going to have a fourth wave of infection. I don't believe we will. But you could see a stalling in the declining cases, certainly on a regional basis. I think we're seeing some of that in New York and New Jersey. I don't think it's going to happen on a national basis. But hopefully the pace of vaccinations is quick enough that it's going to offset a real significant stall and certainly an uptick in the rates of infection. Right now in New York and New Jersey, you're seeing an uptick in infection. That could be also a function of the fact that people who were infected during the spring wave, when a lot of the infection coursed through the population here in the tri-state region, that immunity is starting to wane. So we could have a case where some of the people who were previously infected are starting to get reinfected, maybe not with a severe disease, but starting to get reinfected, maybe be in a position to spread the infection. I'm not sure that's happening right now, but we are seeing a pickup in cases here, and it's concerning.
All right, we'll keep our eyes on that. In the meantime, AstraZeneca, how likely is it that the tens of millions of vaccines that the U.S. is sitting on, tied to things like Operation Warp Speed, that apparently, according to reports this afternoon, other countries are asking to take the supply of, how likely is it that we let those doses go to some of those other countries right now?
Look, I think it's going to be dependent upon what happens with that vaccine from a regulatory standpoint. And if regulators are on a glide path to approve that vaccine authorized in the United States, I would expect that the administration will want to hold on to those doses.
Dr. Gottlieb, when you look at vaccinations administered at the end of the year in the U.S., do you think it will be predominantly 90% plus the three big U.S. names, Pfizer, Moderna, and J&J? We're starting to get good data, good results from some others, but will they really have to find their demand elsewhere around the rest of the world, for 2021 at least?
Yeah, I think that there'll still be demand in the market for another entrant here, because you're going to have two things happening. One, there's going to be continued pace of vaccination. Not everyone's going to get vaccinated in the spring and the summer. I think what's going to happen is, as vaccine eligibility expands in April and May, a lot of the people who haven't been vaccinated are going to be younger people who don't feel as at risk from COVID. And you will have a situation where some people say, you know what, I'll wait until the fall to get vaccinated. So I think that we're going to be expanding eligibility right at the time that demand's going to fall off, in part because of the groups that we're expanding it into. The demand isn't as intense, and in part because prevalence is going to be declining, the weather's going to be getting better, people will feel less vulnerable to COVID. So there's still going to be unvaccinated people, unfortunately, in the fall. I also think there's going to be a situation where we revaccinate people heading into the fall. I think it's likely that we'll be giving boosters and new vaccinations to people in the fall. So there's still going to be a robust market for a new entrant. And I think getting more competition into the market is going to be important. It'll be good for pricing. It'll be good for supply. So I welcome the competition.
Shepard Smith here. Thanks for watching CNBC on YouTube.